boots now. If men were meant to walk 21 miles at a step, I'm sure God would have given us longer legs. Where was I? I'm not sure, said Trumon coldly. Ah, yes. Strange that we could find nothing about the Pyramid of Sort in the library. You would have thought there'd be something, wouldn't you? The librarian will be disciplined, of course. Golder looked sideways at him. Nothing drastic, he said. Withhold his bananas, perhaps. They looked at each other for a moment. Golder broke off first. Looking hard at Trumon always bothered him. It had the same disconcerting effect as gazing into a mirror and seeing no one there. Anyway, he said, strangely enough, I found assistance elsewhere. In my own modest bookshelves, in fact. The Journal of Skrelt Changebasket, the founder of our order. You, my keen young man who would rush off so soon, do you know what happens when a wizard dies? Any spells he has memorized say themselves, said Trumon. It is one of the first things we learn. In fact, it is not true of the original 8 great spells. By dint of a close study, Skrelt learned that a great spell will simply take refuge in the nearest mind open and ready to receive it. Just push the big mirror over here, will you? Golder got to his feet and shuffled across to the forge, which was now cold. The strand of magic still writhed, though, at once present and not present, like a slit cut into another universe full of hot blue light. He picked it up easily, took a longbow from a rack, said a word of power, and watched with satisfaction as the magic grasped the ends of the bow and then tightened until the wood creaked. Then he selected an arrow. Trumon had tugged a heavy full-length mirror into the middle of the floor. When I am head of the order, he told himself, I certainly won't shuffle around in carpet slippers. Trumon, as mentioned earlier, felt that a lot could be done by fresh blood if only the dead wood could be removed. But just for the moment he was genuinely interested in seeing what the old fool would do next. He may have derived some satisfaction if he had known that Golder and Skrelt Changebasket were both absolutely wrong. Golder made a few passes in front of the glass, which clouded over and then cleared to show an aerial view of the forest of Skund. He looked at it intently while holding the bow with the arrow pointing vaguely at the ceiling. He muttered a few words like, allow for wind and speed of, say, 3 knots, and adjust for temperature, and then with a rather disappointing movement, released the arrow. If the laws of action and reaction had anything to do with it, it should have flopped to the ground a few feet away, but no one was listening to them. With a sound that defies description, but which for the sake of completeness can be thought of basically as spang plus 3 days' hard work in any decently equipped radiophonic workshop, the arrow vanished. Golder threw the bow aside and grinned. Of course, it'll take about an hour to get there, he said. Then the spell will simply follow the ionized path back here, to me. Remarkable, said Trumon, but any passing telepath would have read in letters 10 yards high. If you, then why not me? He looked down at the cluttered workbench, where a long and very sharp knife looked tailor-made for what he suddenly had in mind. Violence was not something he liked to be involved in except at one remove, but the Pyramid of Sort had been quite clear about the rewards for whoever brought all 8 spells together at the right time, and Trumon was not about to let years of painstaking work go for nothing because some old fool had a bright idea. "Would you like some cocoa while we're waiting?" said Golder, hobbling across the room to the servant's bell. "Certainly," said Trumon. He picked up the knife, weighing it for balance and accuracy. "I must congratulate you, Master. I can see that we must all get up very early in the morning to get the better of you." Golder laughed, and the knife left Trumon's hand at such speed that, because of the somewhat sluggish nature of disc light, it actually grew a bit shorter and a little more massive as it plunged with unerring aim towards Golder's neck. It didn't reach it. Instead, it swerved to one side and began a fast orbit, so fast that Golder appeared suddenly to be wearing a metal collar. He turned around and